The ice on Halcyon did not just freeze. It sought. It crept up the trunks of the petrified forest in deliberate, agonizing patterns, a slow-motion explosion of crystalline spite. Aidan Ward felt a kinship with it. He, too, was frozen. He, too, was waiting. His hermitage, a prefab cube he had salvaged from a freighter crash 3 years prior, was buried deep in the glacial belt. It was a miserable, silent existence, broken only by the howl of the ion winds and the ghosts whispering in his memory. They spoke of Aegis Black, the covert Earth agency that pruned inconvenient realities from the galactic narrative. Aegis polished Earth's image in the glittering court of the Auric Reach, the vast star imperium ruled by the unblinking Empress Celiora. Aidan had been Aegis Black's finest scalpel. He was the man they sent when a problem needed to not just disappear, but to have never existed. His team had been the best, and they had been betrayed. The memories were shards of ice in his gut. A firefight on a station that was supposed to be deserted. The faces of his team melting in plasma fire. And the final transmission, broadcast across the sector. Aidan Ward, the mole, the traitor, the butcher. It was a lie crafted by the very agency he had served. A convenient fiction to cover their dark partnership with the Nithrax Consortium. Now, he hunted nutrient fauna in the ice forests and dreamed of killing the men who had signed his death warrant. He was also, according to legend, a myth. The man who could read the lattice, the interstellar network of energy that predated the Auric Reach, predated humanity's clumsy jump to the stars. Most thought it was a fairy tale, a navigational anomaly. Aidan knew better. He could feel it, sometimes, humming just beneath the skin of reality. It was a curse he never asked for and a power he refused to touch. The tremor that shook his cabin was not geological. It was wrong. Aidan moved from a dead rest to full alert in a second. The ghosts vanished. The hunter emerged. His boot heels made no sound on the grated floor. His salvaged long-range scanner, a piece of junk that required 10 minutes of prayer and a solid kick to operate, flickered to life. Something was falling. Fast. It tore a jagged hole in Halcyon's upper atmosphere. A streak of fire against the perpetual bruised purple sky. It was too sleek for a freighter, too small for a cruiser. It had the clean, arrogant lines of the Imperial Navy. He cursed, a single, harsh syllable that died in the frigid air. He pulled on his thermal cloak, grabbed his kinetic rifle, and slipped out the door. Trouble coming to Halcyon was one thing. Imperial trouble was a death sentence. He ran for 2 hours, scaling the frozen waterfalls and crossing the glass shard plains. The wreckage was scattered across the Obsidian Mountains, a range of black, volcanic peaks that brooded over the ice forest. The largest piece, a teardrop-shaped escape pod, was wedged in a ravine. He smelled the ozone and the burning composites before he saw them. He also smelled the distinctive, oily scent of a Nithrax issue plasma charger. They were here, already. He moved like a wraith, using the crags for cover. He saw them. 3 of them, clad in the dull black armor of Consortium bounty hunters. They had their weapons trained on the pod, whose hatch had been ripped open. "Come out, little prize," one of them growled, his voice amplified by his helmet. "Regent Karen pays well. Alive is preferred. Preferred, not required." Aidan crept closer, his rifle tight against his shoulder. He saw tracks in the volcanic ash. Small, stumbling boot prints. Someone had fled. He found her huddled behind a spire of obsidian, trying to stifle the sound of her chattering teeth. She was young, wrapped in the tattered, high-tech silks of a royal attendant, though her bearing suggested something more. She held a heavy, ornate imperial medallion in one hand, knuckles white. Her eyes, wide with terror, met his, and then the hunters heard her. "There!" one shouted, raising his rifle. Aidan did not think. He reacted. His shot was perfect, a kinetic slug that punched through the hunter's visor. The man collapsed without a sound. The other two returned fire, spraying the obsidian spire with plasma. "Move!" Aiden roared at the woman. "Now!" She scrambled, slipping on the loose rock. Aiden fired again, forcing the remaining two hunters into cover. He grabbed her arm, hauling her upright. "This way." He dragged her along a high ridge, the wind screaming around them. Plasma bolts hissed past his head. He was rusty, he thought with grim detachment. 5 years ago, they would both be dead before they took cover. "Who are you?" she panted, her voice tight with a strange mix of fear and command. "The local welcoming committee," he grunted. "Keep your head down." A sound, a low-frequency rumble, vibrated through the soles of his boots. He stopped dead. "Oh, no!" "What is it?" she demanded. "The vents," he said, pointing down. The ravine floor was riddled with thermal geysers, and they were all beginning to steam. Halcyon's crust was unstable, a patchwork of magma and ice. "Full eruption. We have maybe 30 seconds." The ground shuddered. Behind them, the two hunters were climbing the ridge, silhouetted against the sky. "There is no way out," she whispered, her voice finally breaking. Aiden scanned the chasm. The eruption was starting, steam and scalding water shooting hundreds of feet into the air. But as the ground split, a narrow ledge of rock, previously submerged, became visible. It was a natural bridge, slick with moisture, and directly over a newly opened magma conduit. A fire bridge. "There is one," he said. "Do not look down." He shoved her forward. "Go." She hesitated for only a high beat, then ran. The rock was slick. She almost fell. The hunters opened fire. A blast of plasma struck the rock at her feet, sending up a shower of molten stone. She screamed. Aiden fired his last 2 shots, driving them back. He ran, grabbing her. "Come on." The eruption hit. Not water, but a geyser of pure, superheated steam. "It is too hot," she cried, pulling back. "It is hotter behind us," he said. He pulled off his heavy thermal cloak and threw it over both of them. "Hold your breath." He plunged them into the scalding cloud. It was like walking through boiling water. He felt the skin on his hands, exposed on her arm, and his rifle begin to blister. He grit his teeth. They burst through the steam, onto the fire bridge. It was an inferno. The air shimmered. The rock beneath their feet glowed a dull, menacing red. "I cannot," she gasped, her legs buckling. He saw the hunters, on the other side, raising their weapons for a final, clear shot. He saw the princess, her face pale, her eyes rolling back. He swore, dropping the rifle. He scooped her up into his arms. She was lighter than he expected. He ran. The heat was unimaginable. His boots began to smoke. The cloak was charring, disintegrating on his back. He felt a searing pain as a plasma bolt hit him square between the shoulder blades. The impact threw him forward. He stumbled, catching his balance at the edge of the magma flow. He could feel the flesh of his back melting. Barely alive, he carried her. He made the other side just as the bridge groaned and collapsed into the fire below. He fell to his knees, dropping her onto the safe, cold ash. He was on fire. His back was a ruin. He tried to roll, to put out the flames, but his limbs would not obey. He was dying. She crawled to him. "You are hurt." She reached out, her hand hovering over the smoldering ruin of his cloak. "Do not touch me," he gasped, pain making him vicious. His glove, the one on his right hand, had been burned away. His skin was raw, blistered. He tried to push himself up, and his bare, ruined hand clamped down on her forearm to steady himself. Skin to skin, the universe stopped. It did not just stop for him. It stopped for Halcyon. For a single, silent second. There was no wind, no eruption, no pain. Then, The sky ripped open. It was not a light. It was a presence. A web of impossible geometry. A net of starlight flashed across the entire sky. It pulsed once. A silent detonation of pure information. So bright it burned a double image onto Aiden's retinas. The fabled lattice. It surged from the ground, through him, through her, and into the heavens. The two remaining Nithrax hunters, staring up from the other side of the chasm, were blinded. They stumbled back, screaming, one falling to his death. The other was consumed as the eruption's full force finally tore the mountain apart. Aiden collapsed, the world spinning into darkness. His last thought was not of the pain, or the hunters, or the betrayal. It was a single, stunned realization. It answered me. He woke up in a cave. The smell of sulfur and antiseptic told him he was in one of his own caches. He was lying on a sleeping mat, and his back felt contained. He reached behind him, a synth skin patch, expertly applied. She was sitting by the cave mouth, silhouetted against the gray light, holding his discarded kinetic rifle. She was no longer the terrified victim. She was aiming it at his chest. "You are awake," she said. Her voice was flat. "Give me my rifle," he rasped. "No," he sighed. He was too tired for this. "Look, Your Highness. You know who I am." It was not a question. "Princess Arya, daughter of Empress Celiora. Yes. Your face is on every credit chip from here to the core. Now, my rifle." "First, you will tell me what you are," she said, her voice hard. "What was that in the sky?" "A weather balloon," he grated, trying to sit up. Pain lanced through him, and he fell back with a groan. "Do not lie to me," she snapped. "I have studied the ancient texts, the First Throne histories. They call it the lattice. They call the ones who can touch it anchors. They said it was a myth, a children's story to legitimize my mother's rule." "Then it is a myth," Aiden said, closing his eyes. "Leave me. Take the supplies. You will last a day, maybe two." "You are Aiden Ward," she continued, ignoring him. "The Aegis Black traitor, the man who supposedly sold his entire team to the Nithrax Consortium." His eyes snapped open. "I did not sell anyone." "I am beginning to believe you," she said softly. She lowered the rifle. "My escort was ambushed, betrayed, by my mother's own guard." "Welcome to the galaxy," he said. She stood up and walked to him, holding out the rifle. But first, he took it, slowly. "I must get to the Skyloom relay station," she said. "It is the only secure node in this sector. I must send a signal to my mother, a proper royal verification." Aiden laughed, a dry, cracked sound that hurt his throat. "Skyloom. That is 300 kilometers of ice, rock, and things that want to eat you. Not to mention the Nithrax patrols that are currently swarming this planet." "You will take me," she said. "I will not," he said, checking the rifle's charge. It was empty. He had fired every shot. "I am a traitor, remember, and I am done with Imperial errands." "Then you are done with living," she said. "Is that a threat, Princess?" "It is a fact. Look." She pointed to a small, handheld scanner near the cave entrance. His scanner, the one he had left at his hermitage. She must have retrieved it. The screen was active. It showed a local map. His hermitage was a bright red dot, and surrounding it, dozens of other dots. "Nithrax," he whispered, his blood turning to ice. "And another group," she said, pointing to a second, tighter ring of contacts. "These signatures are shielded, surgical. They are not Nithrax." Aegis Black. They were here. They had finally found him. The crash. The royal pod. It was just a cosmic joke. They were coming for him anyway. "They were hunting you," Arya realized, her eyes wide. We are the joint prize now, Aiden said grimly. He looked at her, seeing her for the first time. Not as a princess, not as a woman, but as a complication that had just become his only way out. If I do not reach Skyloom, she said, her voice low and desperate, it is not just my life that is forfeit. Regent Karen, the man who hunted me, he has a plan. Everyone has a plan, Aiden said, forcing himself to his feet. The pain was a living thing, clawing at his back. Not like this one, she said, her gaze locking with his. He knows I am with you, or with someone. If I do not broadcast a royal verification signal by the third dawn from now, the consortium will release fabricated evidence, proof that you, the infamous traitor Aiden Ward, have kidnapped me. They will use it to legitimize a full-scale hunt. Not just for me, for you, across the entire Auric Reach. Aiden stood very still. The perfect frame, the elegant, inescapable trap, his past, his present, and his non-existent future, all converging on this single, impossible task. He was being hunted for a crime he did not commit, and now he was being framed for a crime he was about to be forced into. He looked at the princess. He looked at the meager supplies in his cache. He looked at his own reflection in the dark screen of the scanner. A haunted man. A dead man walking. I hope you are a fast walker, Your Highness, Aiden Ward said, and he picked up his empty rifle. Halcyon was not a planet. It was an argument between fire and ice, and it did not tolerate witnesses. They left the relative warmth of the magma-warmed cache and stepped into the teeth of the wind. The cold was a physical blow, a solid wall of malice that stole the air from their lungs. Aiden moved first, his body a map of agony. The synth skin patch on his back was a temporary fix, a fragile shield against the raging infection he knew was coming. His empty rifle felt heavier than a dreadnought's anchor. This way, he grunted, pulling his charred cloak tighter. We need to cross the tundra of size before the next ion storm hits. Tundra of size, Arya asked, her voice tight. She stumbled as her fine, court-issue boots slipped on a patch of black ice. It is not poetic, Aiden said, yanking her upright without ceremony. The wind moves through the crystal formations. It sounds like a billion souls whispering. It also scrambles your brainwaves if you are exposed for more than an hour. Keep up, she bristled, snatching her arm away. I am not one of your commandos, Ward. I am... You are cargo, he cut in, his voice brutal. He did not look back. You are heavy, you are loud, and you are being hunted. Your title means less than nothing out here. All it does is paint a target on my back. So, for the next 3 days, you are not a princess. You are a shadow. You do what I say, when I say it. Can you manage that? Arya's face flushed with anger, then paled to a stark, bloodless white. She saw the truth in his words. She saw the pain he was in, the way he favored his left side, the tightness around his eyes. He was moving on pure, spiteful willpower. She nodded, a single, sharp jerk of her head. Good, he said. First lesson, do not walk where I walk. My tracks are a man's. Yours are a woman's. Walk in my footsteps. Exactly. Do not make them have to guess how many we are. They walked for hours, a grueling, silent procession. One set of footprints in the gray snow. The sky was a bruised, churning lid, promising violence. Aiden's senses were on fire. Every crunch of ice, every distant howl of wind, was a potential threat. He was monitoring 2 groups. The Nithrax patrols were loud, crashing through the landscape with aerial drones and heavy-footed ground pounders. They were a hammer, looking for a nail. The other group, his own, Aegis Black, was worse. They were silent. They were scalpels. He felt their presence in the way the local fauna had vanished. the unnatural stillness in the air. "Here," he said, pulling her abruptly behind a towering rock spur. "Down, do not move." He crawled to the edge, below them, in a shallow basin. A Nithrax drone hovered. It was a sphere of dark metal, its sensors glowing red. It scanned the area, its movements jerky and methodical. Arya watched. Her breath held. Aiden scanned the ground. He found what he was looking for, a shard of the singing crystal, half buried. He eased it from the snow. He held it up, examining its facets. Then, he did something she did not expect. He pulled a small, oily piece of nutrient ration from his pack and began to rub it along one edge of the crystal. "What are you doing?" she whispered. "Hunting," he whispered back. He carefully placed the crystal on the ledge, angled toward the drone. He took a tiny piece of metal from his boot heel, a magnetic shard, and balanced it on the crystal. He waited. The ion wind began to pick up. A low, mournful sound started, the precursor to the tundra's sighing. The wind hit the crystal. It began to vibrate, emitting a low, subsonic hum. The magnetic shard on top shivered. The drone, its audio sensors acute, swiveled. It registered the hum as a potential anomaly. It drifted closer. The wind keened, rising in pitch. The crystal's hum climbed, resonated. The shard on top began to dance. The drone moved in, centimeters from the crystal. The frequency spiked. The magnetic shard, vibrating at 1,000 cycles per second, shot off the crystal like a bullet. It was a tiny, insignificant projectile, but it was all Aiden needed. It struck the drone's primary optical lens, a shower of sparks. The drone's red eye went dark. The machine, blinded and confused, zipped erratically into the air, straight up, and then slammed itself into the cliff wall in a shower of broken parts. Aiden slumped, letting out a breath. Arya stared at him. "How did you know that would work?" "I did not," he said, pushing himself up. "But the drone's lens casing is 90% ferrous, and that crystal resonates at the precise frequency to shatter its own structure, which I figured would be loud. The ration bar that was just to pass the time." She realized he was joking. The dry, exhausted humor of it was more jarring than the attack. "You are infuriating," she said. "And you are alive," he retorted. "Move." The promised storm hit them an hour later. It was not wind and snow. It was a wall of static electricity. The air crackled. Blue sparks danced across Aiden's ruined cloak. The fillings in his teeth ached. "In here," he shouted over the roar, dragging her into a fissure in the rock. It was a cave, barely more than a crack. They pressed into the darkness as the world outside became a solid, blinding sheet of white and blue energy. They were trapped. The storm would rage for hours. The cave was small, the silence between them heavy. Aiden set up a tiny, chemical-based heat source. It cast flickering, monstrous shadows on the walls. "You need to rest," Arya said, her voice quiet. "Your back. The patch is failing." He glanced at the diagnostic on his wrist. "I am aware." "I am a trained physician," she said. He actually laughed at that. "A princess physician. What did you practice on your servants?" "I practiced in the medical bays of the Imperial flagship," she said, her voice sharp and cold. "I specialized in nanite trauma and biointegration. I am probably the most qualified person in this quadrant to deal with a third-degree plasma burn. Now, take off the cloak, or I will sedate you and do it while you sleep." He stared at her. There was no fear in her eyes now, only a cold, professional anger, slowly, painfully. He unclasped the cloak and shrugged it off, biting back a scream as it peeled away from the synth skin. The patch was bubbling, a disgusting yellow. She inspected it, her touch light but firm. "It is infected. Badly." "Just patch it," he grated, his head resting against the cold rock. I cannot. The infection is walled off. I need to clean it. This will hurt. I have a high tolerance for... He did not finish. She lanced the infection with a sterilized knife from his own medkit. He roared, a strangled, animal sound, his entire body convulsing. She worked quickly, her hands sure and steady. She cleaned the wound, applied a new regenerative patch, and secured it. The entire time, he was a coiled spring of agony, his muscles shaking, his breath coming in ragged gasps. When she was done, he was drenched in sweat. There, she said, her voice softer now. That should hold you until Skyloom. He just nodded, breathing heavily. Rest, she commanded. He fell into a fitful, shallow sleep. He dreamed of fire and betrayal, of his team dying, of Aegis. He woke up with a start, his hand flying to a knife at his boot. She was watching him. The heat source was almost dead. You dream, she said. You cry out. Everyone dreams, he said, sheathing the knife. Not everyone dreams of Aegis Black, she said. He went still. What do you know of Aegis? Only what the official court briefings say. An Earth-based private security firm. Efficient, discreet, and completely neutral. Aiden barked a laugh. Neutral Aegis Black is Earth's foreign policy. They are the spies, the assassins, and the kingmakers that let the official Earth government look clean. They prune the timeline. Princess. They make sure Earth always has the advantage. Always. And if a team of their own operatives gets in the way of a profitable arms deal with the Nithrax Consortium, he tapped his own chest. Loose ends. The consortium, she whispered, her eyes dark. The ones who attacked my ship. You think Aegis and Nithrax are working together? I do not think, Aiden said. I know. I was the loose end. An uncomfortable silence filled the cave. Arya looked away, her gaze falling on the far wall. The rock was different here, smoother, and it was covered in script. Faint, geometric markings that seemed to glow with a faint, residual energy from the storm outside. What is this? She murmured, tracing a pattern with her finger. Aiden did not even look. Old, pre-imperial, means nothing. It does not mean nothing, she said, her voice strange. She walked along the wall, her fingers tracing the lines. I know this language. It is Proto-Auric, the root tongue, the one my mother claims her authority from. But this is a dialect I have only seen in the Forbidden Scrolls. What does it say? He asked, bored, mostly to keep his mind off the pain. She was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was odd. It talks about the lattice, the great web. It says the web sleeps, but it waits. It waits for the anchor, the nautil. That got his attention. He sat up, wincing. What did you say, the anchor? A being who can bridge the gap, one who can sing the song of the forge and calm the starfire. It says... She stopped, her finger on a single, repeating symbol. It says the anchor is of the first forge, of Terra. She turned, her eyes wide, staring at him in the dim light. Earth. It says the anchor is human. Aiden's blood ran cold. The skyfire, the lattice, the way it had answered him. It was not a myth. They said the anchors were legends, Arya whispered. Beings of immense power who could shape reality. That is why the lattice is feared, why it is forbidden. And you touched me, and the sky. It answered you. Before Aiden could process this, before he could form a denial, a new sound cut through the howl of the storm, a high-pitched, electronic whine. Aiden was on his feet in an instant, rifle in hand. That is not the wind. He moved to the cave mouth. The storm was dying, the air clearing, and a new drone was rising from the valley. This one was different, sleek, silver, almost invisible. It was not Nithrax. "Aegis," he hissed. The drone hovered, scanning the cliff face. It had not seen them. Not yet. "We have to move," he said. "The storm is breaking. We lost hours." "Back into that—" "It is better than what is coming." He looked at her, his mind racing. She was a physician. She was a scholar of dead languages. She was a liability. And she was, perhaps, the only person in the galaxy who had a clue what he was. "One more thing, Your Highness," he said, his voice quiet. "What?" "That medallion you wear, the Imperial crest. It is beautiful." She touched it, a reflex. "It was my mother's. It is the seal of my authority." "It is also a high-gain, quantum-entangled beacon," Aiden said, his eyes like chips of ice. Her face went blank. "What? No. It is just a symbol. I am a traitor. Princess. I know treason. I know tech. That thing has been screaming your location to a secure server in the Auric core since the moment you left your ship." He took a step closer. "The question is, were you broadcasting, or were you being broadcast?" Her hand flew to her throat, her fingers fumbling with the clasp. "No, that is impossible. Only my mother's most trusted." Her voice trailed off. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. The betrayal was not just the guard. It was not just an ambitious regent. It was deeper. It was in her court. It was in her family. She ripped the medallion from her neck, her hands shaking. "The ones who ambushed me." "We're just the first wave," Aiden finished. "Nithrax wants you for leverage. Aegis wants me for being a monster. And you for seeing it. And your own people. They just wanted you gone." She looked at the medallion in her hand, the symbol of her entire life. Now, a glittering, malevolent spy. She threw it against the cave wall. It shattered into a dozen pieces. "Good," Aiden said, a flicker of something. Not respect, but acknowledgement in his eyes. "You are learning. Now you are not a princess. Now, you are just a target. Like me." He peered out. The Aegis drone was moving on. "We are clear, but they know we are on this ridge." They moved out, back into the half-frozen slush. The tundra of size gave way to the singing glass forest. It was beautiful, and it was hell. Towers of translucent, silica-based crystal rose like trees, catching the weak light and refracting it into a million blinding, dancing shards. The wind moved through them, creating a sound that was at once beautiful and maddening. It was a symphony of splintering, screaming glass. "Keep your ears covered as much as you can," Aiden ordered. "The frequency can cause vertigo. And do not touch anything." They were halfway through the forest when the hunters caught up. Not drones. Men. 4 of them, in the black armor of Nithrax. They were spread out, using the glass trees for cover. Aiden and Arya dove behind a massive, fractured crystal. Plasma fire erupted, striking the glass. It did not just block the shot. It absorbed it, the crystal lighting up with a blinding, internal fire, and then exploding. A million white-hot needles of glass flew everywhere. Aiden pulled Arya down, shielding her with his own body as the shrapnel storm rained down. "This is bad," he muttered. "This is very bad." "They have us pinned," Arya stated the obvious. "Worse," Aiden said. "They are using plasma, amateurs. In a refractive field like this, they will bring the whole forest down on us." "Any bright ideas?" she hissed, as another explosion rocked their cover. "Just one." He pointed to a massive, perfectly formed crystal spire about 50 meters away. "That one. The King's Shard, the locals call it. See how it is humming." I can hear it from here. Ward, it is a resonator. It is absorbing all the ambient energy and amplifying it. If they hit that one with a full plasma charge, it will explode, she said. No, Aiden said, a terrible grin splitting his face. It will sing. One note. At a frequency that will turn their neural implants into soup and their bones into jelly. It is crude. But effective, she finished, her eyes wide. But how do we get them to hit it? We make ourselves a more attractive target. Right in front of it. That is insane. Welcome to my life. On my mark. Run. He grabbed her hand and pulled her. They broke cover, sprinting across the open, glittering ground, heading straight for the king's shard. There they are, one of the hunters roared. Fire! Fire! They unleashed a volley. Plasma bolts, designed to melt armor, streaked toward the two running figures. Aiden dove, pulling Arya with him, skidding behind the massive shard just as the volley hit. The king's shard did not explode. It detonated with sound. It was not a song. It was a physical blow, a single, pure, impossibly loud frequency that hit the hunters like a battering ram. Their armor, designed to filter audio, amplified it. Their helmets shattered. Their weapons fell from nerveless hands as they grabbed their heads, screaming, blood pouring from their ears and noses. The sound wave hit Aiden and Arya, even behind the shard. It felt like being punched in the chest, over and over. Aiden roared in pain, the sound stolen by the greater noise. And then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. The shard, its energy spent, cracked from top to bottom and fell silent. In the ringing silence, there was only the sound of Aiden and Arya gasping for air. The four hunters were dead, their bodies twisted. Never, Aiden panted. Do that again. He was helping her up when the voice came. It was not from a comlink. It was broadcast, a ship's external address system. It boomed across the glass forest, shaking the shards. Aiden Ward, you have been a difficult man to find. Aiden froze. He knew that voice. Cold, patient, amused. Director Hale. Aegis was not just a drone. They were here. You have caused a significant amount of trouble. Aiden. You have allied yourself with a foreign power, contrary to Earth's interests. You have engaged in criminal activity. And now, you have abducted a member of the Imperial family. This cannot be allowed. A sleek, black ship, an Aegis-class stiletto, rose above the treetops, its weapon systems gleaming. We have no quarrel with the princess, Hale's voice continued. But you are a contamination. Surrender now, and she will be treated with courtesy. He is lying, Arya whispered, her hand gripping Aiden's arm. He never lies, Aiden whispered back. He just tells the truth that suits him. He will courteously strand you here while his snipers neutralize me. Aegis does not like witnesses. Then, what do? We run. But there was nowhere to run. The ship's belly doors opened, and a team of 6 Aegis operatives, clad in gray, sensor-dampening stealth suits, rappelled to the ground. They moved with a lethal, terrifying grace. They were not hunters. They were his brothers, his former team, the new ones, built to hunt him. They were trapped, Nithrax behind them, Aegis in front. Well, Aiden said, raising his empty rifle, this is a new sound, a different sound, a high-pitched, whining scream of cheap, aftermarket engines pushed far beyond their safety limits. A battered, rust-colored cargo skiff shot over the ridge, its side-mounted kinetic cannons firing. The shots, wild and inaccurate, stitched the ground between the Aegis team and Aiden. The Aegis team, surprised, scattered for cover. An amplified voice, cheerful and laced with static, boomed from the skiff. If you are hearing this, Ward Dog, You still owe me for that mess on Cygnus, and you look like you are about to pay it in blood. Look up, you idiot." The skiff's side hatch opened. A woman with wild, dark hair and a grease-stained flight suit grinned at him from the cockpit. "Mira Solis," Aiden breathed. "That crazy, life-saving thieving." "Get on!" Mira shouted, as the Stiletto's point defense guns opened fire, tracking her. Aiden grabbed Arya. "Now, run, fast!" They sprinted, the ground exploding around them from the Stiletto's cannons. Mira brought the skiff down, hovering just a foot off the glass, her engines screaming in protest. Aiden threw Arya in, and then dived in after her as the ramp closed. "Buckle up!" Mira yelled, slamming the throttle. The skiff shot into a narrow canyon, plasma fire from the Stiletto singeing its tail. They were thrown against the bulkhead as Mira executed a series of impossible, high-gravity turns. "You too," she panted, her eyes glued to the console. "Look like something a Skyrend coughed up. Princess." "I presume." She did not wait for an answer. "Aiden, you always did aim above your station." She flew them low, deep into the canyon systems, the Stiletto a menacing shadow above them, unable to follow. Finally, she dived into a massive, dark fissure, plunging them into the planet's crust. She landed the skiff in a vast, dark cavern, lit only by the glow of phosphorescent fungi. She killed the engines. The silence was absolute. "This," Mira said, leaning back in her chair and wiping her forehead, "is as far as I go. Aegis has the sky, and I just saw a broadcast. Regent Karen. He has seized the sky ports around Skyloom. He has aerial dominance. It is a fortress." "We need to get to Skyloom," Arya insisted, her voice shaking but firm. "You cannot," Mira said, turning to face them. She looked at Aiden. "She is right. You cannot. It is a suicide run." "There must be a way," Arya said. Mira sighed. She tapped a console. A holographic map of the region appeared. "There is, but you will not like it. The old seismic tunnels, used for the original terraforming survey. They are unstable. They are not pressurized, and they are full of things. But," she traced a line with her finger, "they run right under the main reactor of the Skyloom station." Aiden looked at the map. "It will have to do. We owe you, Mira." "You owe me twice now," Mira corrected, her smile sharp. "Which means you are buying drinks for a year. If you live." She pointed to a dark, narrow tunnel at the back of the cave. "That is your entrance. Good luck." As they gathered their meager supplies, a new broadcast lit up Mira's console. It was not Karen. It was Director Hale. His face, calm and professional, filled the screen. It was broadcasting on all public channels. "Citizens of the Auric Reach, it is my solemn duty to report that the traitor, Aiden Ward, a fugitive from Earth Justice, has been positively identified on Halcyon. We have disturbing evidence." A faked, grainy image of Aiden dragging Arya from the pod appeared. "That he is responsible for the abduction of Her Imperial Highness, Princess Arya. We are coordinating with Imperial forces to ensure her safe return." Arya's face went white. He just turned the entire galaxy against us," Aiden finished, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. He looked at the tunnel. He looked at Arya. "The clock just ran out." "Aiden," Mira said, her voice serious for the first time. "This is not just a hunt. This is an execution. You go in there. You do not come out." "He is right about one thing," Aiden said. He picked up the empty rifle, his knuckles white. "I am a contamination, and I am about to infect their whole network." He looked at Arya. "Stay close, and try not to breathe." He took her hand, and together, the two most wanted people in the galaxy stepped into the darkness. The seismic tunnels were a tomb. The air was dead, heavy with the metallic tang of ancient, uncirculated machinery and the sulfurous breath of the planet's deep lungs. It was cold, but the cold was a distant fact, overshadowed by the oppressive, crushing dark. They had one light stick, its chemical glow casting a sickly green pall over their faces. Aiden moved with a pained, predator's economy. Every step was a calculation of energy, spent versus ground gained. He had scavenged 2 pulse charges and a replacement energy cell for his rifle from Mira's skiff. But the weapon felt alien in his hands. It was a soldier's tool, and he was a ghost. Ghosts did not need guns. They needed revenge. The thought was a cold, familiar comfort. He had lived on it for 5 years, but now it was muddled. He glanced at the woman picking her way over a tangle of rusted rebar behind him. Princess Arya. She had not complained once. Not about the dark, the filth, or the rattling unseen things that skittered just beyond the edge of their light. She was terrified. He could smell it, a faint, copper-sharp spike in the stale air. But she moved. She kept up. Her presence was an irritant, a complication, and, his mind admitted with venomous reluctance, a focus. Revenge was an abstraction. Her survival was a problem sitting 2 meters to his left. He was wrestling with a deeper fear. The lattice. In the cave, when she had read the ancient script, something in him had uncoiled. The anchor. A human. The name resonated with a truth he had spent his life suppressing. He could feel it. He had always been able to. As a child, it was a sense of wrongness in the world, a hum under the static. At Aegis, they had weaponized it. They called it his unparalleled intuition, his preternatural battlefield awareness. They had trained him to read the subtle energies of a room, a crowd, a system. He had been their best, and he had led his team into a kill box on a forgotten moon, all based on that intuition. He had felt the all clear, a green, shining path, but it had been a lie, a trap. His intuition had been fed, manipulated, and turned against him. The lattice, or whatever had been pulling his strings, had gotten his team killed. He would never trust it again. He would die before he touched that power. Stop. His voice was a flat command, echoing instantly in the confined space. Arya froze, her hand flying to the small knife he had given her. What? Ahead. Listen. She held her breath. A faint, rhythmic clicking. It was not a creature. It was mechanical. Sensor node, he whispered. Aegis patrol, sweeping the tunnels. He edged forward, his light stick off. They were plunged into absolute blackness. He put his mouth close to her ear, his voice a vibration more than a sound. Aegis Tech. It will see my body heat. It will hear your heart. We cannot move. We cannot breathe. We have to be stone. He felt her nod in the dark. The clicking grew louder. It was coming from a side passage, a patrol, or just an automated sweeper drone. It did not matter. If it tagged them, the tunnel would be flooded with kill teams inside of 10 minutes. The clicking was almost on top of them. Aiden did not breathe. He slowed his heart. A trick he had learned in the ice, a state of near hibernation. But he could feel Arya next to him. She was vibrating, a low, terrified tremor that was as loud as a scream. Her breathing was shallow and fast. Panic. The drone was at the intersection, its search beam, a sliver of blue light he could see even with his eyes closed, sliced across the tunnel opening. Arya's breath hitched. She was going to break. Aiden made a choice, the one he had sworn he would never make. He did not reach out with his hands. He reached out with his mind. He did not try to touch the lattice. He would not give it that power. Instead, he reached for the planet itself, for the sheer, dumb, physical weight of the rock around them. He remembered the sensation from the volcano, the hum of the seismic energy. He found it. A deep, slow vibration in the planet's crust. He focused on it. He pulled on it. Just a little. He did not ask. He demanded. He wove a string of seismic energy, a low-frequency hum, and sent it down the tunnel, away from them. He made it rattle a loose piece of rock 100 meters in the opposite direction. It was a chime, a tiny clink-clink sound. The clicking of the drone stopped. The blue light vanished. Then, the clicking resumed, faster, heading down the other tunnel. It had taken the bait. Aiden let his own breath out, a ragged, silent sigh. He felt a drop of blood on his upper lip. His nose was bleeding. He switched on the light. Arya was slumped against the wall, her eyes shut, her face sheet white. She opened her eyes and saw him. She saw the blood trickling from his nose. "How?" she whispered, her voice shaking. I heard rocks fall. Down the other way." "The tunnels are unstable," he said flatly, wiping the blood on the back of his glove. "We got lucky." She stared at him, her gaze unnervingly perceptive. She knew. She knew he was lying. She knew he had done something. Her world was built on royal bloodlines, on science, on data. He was something that did not fit. He was a myth that was bleeding on her, and her heart, which had been pounding with terror, gave a strange, painful lurch. It was not gratitude. It was not fear. It was recognition. He was an outcast. He was a monster, and he was the only thing keeping her alive. She realized, utterly and completely bound to this dangerous, broken man. Her fate was his. He was already moving. "It will be back. We have to go." They moved for what felt like days. The tunnel sloped upward, the air growing colder, thinner. They could see the exit, a circular maw of gray, anemic light. They had reached the surface, just below the ridge of skyloom. "Wait here," Aiden commanded. He crawled the last 50 meters alone. He peered over the lip of the tunnel. He did not curse. He did not move. He simply stared. Arya, unable to bear the silence, crawled up beside him. She looked, and her hope died. The plateau before Skyloom was a kill zone. It was a vast, open field, maybe a kilometer across, and it was alive. The ground was studded with hundreds of dragon's teeth, magnetic generators that pulsed with a visible, blue-black energy. Between them, a web of energy shimmered. Suspended in that web, like flies in amber, were thousands of pieces of metal debris, shrapnel, hull fragments, old satellites, a debris field, as Mira had warned. It was not a minefield. It was an anti-personnel blender, held in place by pure, lethal magnetism. And above, circling like vultures, were Nithrak's heavy assault drones. "There is no way," Arya whispered. "It is a wall." "It is a message," Aiden corrected, his voice low. "It says, we own this. They are not just guarding the station. They are daring us to try." He scanned the field. "The generators are phased. They create a wave to move the debris. If you time the wave, you might get a few seconds before you are shredded by a stray engine block." "This is insane." "It is, and we have an audience." He pointed to the sky, a new ship signature, an Aegis Stiletto, hovering just at the edge of the atmosphere, watching the Nithrax patrols, watching the field. Aiden's mind was clear. He saw the board. Aegis wanted him to try. They wanted to see what he would do. They wanted to watch Nithrax tear him apart. And if Nithrax failed, the Aegis snipers would finish the job. They were pinning him, letting their unwitting allies do the dirty work. And Nithrax. They were loud. They were brutal. And they were waiting. They wanted the lattice. That starfire that Arya had mentioned. That power he had unleashed. They thought, By capturing him, they could capture it. They wanted to put a god in a bottle and sell it to the highest bidder. Aiden pulled back into the tunnel. He was trapped. He looked at Arya. Her face was grim, determined. The princess was gone. The physician scholar remained. You said I was an anchor, he said, his voice barely audible. The texts said that, she corrected, her voice gentle. Can you anchor a satellite? What? I need to blind them. He explained it, quickly. The seismic wave trick. He needed to do it again, but bigger. He needed to tickle the lattice, as he had called it. Pluck its strings and send a wave of static, of pure, unusable noise, up into the atmosphere, a static shell that would blind every sensor in orbit. Aiden, you bled, she said, her voice hesitant. From a whisper. What you are talking about. It is a shout. It could kill you. Being shredded by shrapnel will also kill me, he pointed out. This is the only way. I need a window. Just 5 minutes. And what if it does more? She pressed. What if you cannot? Let go. Then you make me let go, he said, his voice hard. He handed her his knife. If I am not me when I am done. You understand. She looked at the knife, then at his face. No, she said. He stared, confused. No. I will not kill you, Aiden. She put the knife down. But I will not let you go. He did not know what to say. He turned away, back to the wall of the tunnel. Get back, give me space. He sat, cross-legged, on the cold stone. He closed his eyes. He let the world fall away. The cold, the pain in his back, the fear. He reached down. This time, he did not just find the hum of the planet. He found the other thing, the lattice. It was there, sleeping. A vast, complex, terrifying web of light and power, just behind the veil of reality. It felt ancient. It felt aware. He did not touch it. He found the seismic strings again, the ones that vibrated next to the web. He was a musician, tuning a vast, planetary guitar. He began to play. He wove a song of dissonance, a chord of pure, controlled chaos. He built the wave, a rising tide of energy, and he aimed it at the sky. He pushed. The lattice shoved back. It did not just shove. It opened, and it poured into him. He was not in a tunnel. He was on that station, the mission. 5 years ago. His team. He saw them. He saw Jason, his second, laughing, polishing his rifle. He saw Maya, his tech, chewing on her thumbnail. They were alive. They were real. Aiden, we have a problem, Jason was saying. The all clear, you felt I am seeing ghosts. Aegis ghosts. Our own codes. No, Aiden said, in the tunnel. No, it was clear. The codes are real, boss, Maya said, her fingers flying. They are coming. Oh, gods. They are. The door exploded, plasma fire. The smell of burning flesh. Jason, raising his rifle, his chest disintegrating. Maya, turning. A look of pure, agonizing surprise on her face before she was gone. No, Aiden screamed. He was on his knees in the tunnel, but he was on his knees on the station, holding the charred, unrecognizable hand of his friend. I am sorry. I trusted it. I am sorry. He was lost. The grief was a physical ocean, drowning him. He was dying with them, over and over. Aiden. A voice. Small. Distant. Aiden, come back. Hands. On his face. Cool. Gentle. Breathe. You are not there. You are here. Breathe with me. Aiden. Look at me. His eyes snapped open. He was in the tunnel. The green light stick. Arya's face. Inches from his. She was holding his head, her thumbs tracing circles on his temples. He was hyperventilating, choking on sobs he did not know he was making. "Breathe with me," she commanded. Not as a princess, as a physician. In, hold, out. Again. He gasped, his lungs obeying her command. He focused on her eyes, the small, worried frown between her brows. He was covered in sweat. His nose was bleeding, but so were his ears. A high-pitched whine filled his head. He choked. "You did it," she said, her voice soft, but her grip on him was like steel. She did not let him go. She just held him, anchoring him to the present, to the cold, to the filth, to her. A small, buzzing sound came from his wristcom, a voice, crackling with static. "Ward dog, you alive in there because you just turned my entire sensor board into a snowstorm. It is beautiful. You have about 5 minutes before the system reboots." It was Mira. Aiden looked at Arya. She helped him to his feet. He was shaking, weak as a newborn. But he was alive, and he was here. "Let's go," he rasped. "One problem." Mira's voice crackled. "That debris field is still hot. You cannot walk it. I am at the edge, but I cannot get to you. The tunnel exit is shielded." "We are coming," Aiden said. They ran, stumbling, out of the tunnel and into the gray light. The debris field was silent. The blue-black energy was gone, replaced by a dull, static-filled shimmer. The Nithrax drones were zigzagging, blind and confused. The Aegis ship was nowhere, probably pulling back to re-establish a link. In the distance, at the edge of the plateau, Mira's battered skiff hovered. "We have to run for it," Aiden said. "Wait," Arya said. She pointed. What is that? Tucked into an alcove near the tunnel was a small, one-man craft, a windskiff, a ground effect vehicle used for station maintenance. "A key," Aiden breathed. They left a key for the guards to get across. It was a desperate, 1 in a million chance. He climbed in. It was built for one. Arya piled in, practically sitting in his lap. He hit the power. The engines whined, lifting them a foot off the ground. "Hold on," he said. He slammed the throttle. They shot out over the plateau. "This is not a wind skiff," Arya yelled over the scream of the engine. "This is a coffin. Just hold on." They raced across the magnetic field. The debris, no longer held in its perfect, lethal web, was now just falling. It was raining shrapnel. "Bank left," Arya screamed. Aiden yanked the controls. A large piece of hull plating, the size of a door, crashed to the ground exactly where they had been. "You are a good co-pilot," he yelled. "Just fly," she yelled back. They made it. They slammed into the side of Mira's skiff, a jarring, bone-rattling impact. The hatch opened. "You two," Mira said, shaking her head, "are a disaster." "Get us to the station," Aiden said, climbing into her cargo bay, pulling Arya after him. "Now." Mira did not need to be told twice. She flew them low, under the confused drones, and landed them on the station's roof, in a blind spot between sensor arrays. "This is as far as I go, kids," she said. "The rest is on you." "Mira," Aiden said. "Thank you." "Just stay alive," she said, her smile wavering. "Aegis and Nithrax. They are not the only players. There are other things in the dark. Be careful." The hatch sealed. Her skiff was gone. They were alone, on the roof of Skyloom. The station was a fortress, but Aiden had built fortresses, and he knew how to tear them down. "Karen's men will be heavy infantry," he said, checking his rifle. "Slow, armored, predictable. We are not going to fight them. We are going to haunt them." They found a maintenance hatch. The inside of the station was a maze of chrome and glass. It was beautiful, sterile, and built to reflect. A house of mirrors. Aiden smiled. It was a cold, wolfish expression. They ran into the first patrol on the third level, a 4-man team. There, one yelled, raising his heavy plasma rifle. Arya, get behind that bulkhead, now, Aiden ordered. He stepped into the open. The trooper fired. Aiden was not there. He had dodged, the shot hitting the mirrored, curved wall behind him. The plasma reflected. It struck a different wall, and then a third, and then hit the trooper's backpack. He exploded. The other 3 stared, confused. It is a trick, their leader roared. Fire! Aiden was already gone, running down a hallway. They followed. He led them into the main atrium, a vast, multi-leveled space of glass and steel. I have you! The leader yelled, seeing Aiden's reflection in a panel. He fired. The panel shattered, revealing another panel, which showed another angle. Where is he? I am right here, Aiden's voice said. He was on a level above them. He fired his rifle. The single, kinetic slug hit the glass floor the leader was standing on. It fractured, but did not break. Boo! The leader looked up, his face a mask of rage. He fired upward. The shot hit the ceiling, which was also reflective, and bounced back down, striking one of his own men. You, the leader snarled. You are a coward. I am a ghost, Aiden replied. He dropped a pulse charge, which rolled to the edge. And you are dead. The charge detonated, a concussive, non-lethal blast. But it was enough. The fractured glass floor gave way. The last 2 troopers fell, screaming, to the level below. Aiden did not watch them land. He was already moving. Arya, come on! They reached the broadcast center. It was empty. The door was heavy, reinforced. They did not think we would get this far, Arya said, her hands flying over the console. She was brilliant. Her fingers moved with a speed that defied belief. She was interfacing with Imperial-level encryption. I am in, but there is a feedback loop. Aegis. They are piggybacking on the station's security. Can you break it? I cannot break it, she said, her brow furrowed. But I can use it. I will send my signal. But I will wrap it in their own encryption. They will think it is one of their own reports. It will bypass their filters and go straight to the Empress. Do it! She hit the last key. A stream of data, a complex, beautiful string of royal code, shot into the stars. Arya sagged, her relief palpable. It is done. They have it. My mother will know the truth. The console chimed. A message was coming in. What is this? Arya said. A face appeared on the screen. Not the Empress. Director Hale. He was smiling. It was a calm, paternal, devastating smile. Princess Arya, he said, his voice smooth as silk. Thank you. Your unauthorized signal has allowed us to triangulate your exact position. But more importantly, it has allowed us to authenticate your message. What? What did you do? Arya whispered. We did not block your signal, Your Highness, Hale said, as if explaining to a child. We amplified it. We confirmed it as a deep fake, generated by the terrorist Aiden Ward, using your stolen royal keys as a pathetic attempt to sow confusion. A tragic, desperate act. The screen split. It now showed the Imperial newsfeed. The Empress's own herald was reading a proclamation. And in light of this confirmed deception by the traitor Ward, Her Majesty, Empress Celiora, has issued a blood warrant, full authorization for Aegis Black and allied Nithro-Chalar forces to use any and all lethal force to resolve this crisis and liberate the princess. A broadcast of Regent Karen filled the screen, his voice booming with triumph. We will not fail our Empress. We will hunt this animal. We will tear the heart from his chest, and we will bring our princess home." The screen went dark. Arya's legs gave out. She sank to the floor. He twisted it. He used my own signal. My mother. She was not just a target. She was a weapon. His weapon. Aiden walked to the console. He looked at the blank screen. His reflection staring back at him. His face was a granite mask. The high-pitched whine in his ears had returned. The ghosts of his team were silent. They were not disappointed. They were waiting. The broadcast had not just turned the galaxy against them. It had given their hunters a holy mandate. "He just signed his own death warrant," Aiden Ward said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. He turned to Arya, who was staring at him, her eyes wide with a new, terrible understanding. "He thinks this is a trap," Aiden said, offering her his hand. "He is right. Just not his." The klaxon was not a sound. It was a physical assault, a roaring, synthesized scream that filled the broadcast center, vibrating in Aiden's teeth. Simultaneously, the entire station shuddered, a deep, grinding impact that threw Arya from her chair. "They are here," she said, her voice a strained whisper against the alarm. "They were always here," Aiden said. He was already moving, his rifle up. He looked at the main tactical display. It was a sea of hostile red icons, swarming the station from every angle. That was just the doorbell. The assault was three-pronged, a perfect, unholy trinity of malice. From the ground, Regent Karen's Nithrax battalions were advancing, no longer caring about the debris field. They brought their own siege breakers, heavy-plated tanks that pushed the shrapnel aside, firing concussion charges at the station's foundation. They wanted the prize intact, but they were willing to crack the safe to get it. From the high ridges, where the wind screamed over the ice, Aegis had deployed its purifier teams. They were not firing. They were just watching. Snipers, their cold, patient minds shielded by their stealth suits, waiting for a clean shot. They were the cleanup crew, tasked with ensuring Aiden Ward did not, under any circumstances, walk away. And in the near orbit, a third, confused element, Imperial patrol cruisers. They had arrived, responding to the original, garbled distress call, only to be met by Hale's blood warrant. They hung back, their weapons cold, their captains caught in a paralyzing storm of contradictory orders. They were the audience, forced to watch the jackals tear apart their charge. Aiden looked at the sealed door of the broadcast center. A bright, molten spot began to glow in its center. Nithrax breachers. They would be through in less than 2 minutes. "The mirror trick will not work again," he said, his voice grim. "That was a squad. This is an army." Arya looked at him, her face pale but her eyes fierce. "Then what we cannot fight them." "No," Aiden said. He looked at his own hands, his mind going back to the tunnel, the agony, the ghosts of his team, the raw, terrifying power. "We cannot." He made the choice, the one his entire being screamed against. "I am going to use it," he said, his voice flat. "Aiden." "No." Arya's response was instant, visceral. "In the tunnel. It almost killed you. You bled." "That was a whisper," he said, turning to face her. He needed her to understand. "This is going to be a shout. I am going to open the deep channel. I am going to plug in." "You do not know what it will do," she pleaded. "You could lose yourself. You could become that thing." "I know what they will do," he retorted, gesturing to the melting door. "Karen will take you. Hale will kill me. The galaxy will believe a lie. I am out of options. Princess." He sat, cross-legged, in the center of the room, ignoring the klaxons, ignoring the thud of breaching charges. He looked at her. "But you are right. I might not. Come back. When I connected before, I saw them. My team. I saw them die. Again. It wants me to drown in my own past. Arya's expression shifted. The fear for him was replaced by a sudden, intense focus. The physician, the scholar. The texts, she said, kneeling in front of him. The anchor. It needs a ground. It needs a link to the real. In the cave. I was your link. When you touched me, it woke up. When I held you in the tunnel, you came back. She fumbled at her own neck. The medallion was gone, but her hand went to her finger. She twisted a simple, platinum ring. It bore the crest of her house, small, almost invisible. This is my signet, she said. My biosignature is keyed to it. It is my imperial seal in its purest form. She took his hand. When you go, take this. She pressed the ring into his palm, closing his fingers around it. It is not a failsafe to kill you, Aiden. It is a lighthouse. If you get lost in the static, if you see the ghosts, you find me. You follow this. It is your path back. She then touched his temple, her fingers cool. But I will be the lock. If I see that you are not you, I will use my authority. I will break the connection. Do you understand? He looked at the ring, then at her. I understand. The door behind him groaned, the metal beginning to buckle. Do it now, she said. Aiden closed his eyes. He let go. He did not just reach for the lattice. He opened himself to it. It did not just pour in. It detonated. In the broadcast room, the lights did not flicker. They turned a solid, blinding, electric blue. The wail of the klaxon died, replaced by a single, impossible low thrum that was the sound of the station breathing. Aiden convulsed, a sharp gasp tearing from his lungs. His body levitated an inch off the floor, held in a cradle of pure, unseen energy. Outside, on the plateau, the world broke. Regent Karen, watching from the viewport of his assault tank, roared. Now, breach, breach. His forward squad placed the final charge on the broadcast room's outer wall. Before they could detonate it, a column of solid, blue-white light erupted from the ground beneath their feet. There was no sound. They did not scream. Their weapons, and a 10-meter circle of ice, were simply gone. Vaporized. Karen stared in disbelief. Another pillar of light, and another. All across the plateau. The lattice was manifesting. It was not a Skynet. It was a forest of pure, lethal energy, sprouting from the planet's crust. What is this? Karen snarled. Fire on the station! All units! Concentration fire! A dozen plasma cannons unleashed their energy. The bolts, streams of white-hot matter, streaked toward the station, and bent, in midair, as if hitting an invisible curved wall. The plasma looped. It turned in the sky, a perfect, graceful arc, and slammed back into the Nithrax line. Tanks exploded. Drones were swatted from the air by their own redirected fire. Aiden Ward was no longer in the room. He was the station. He was the plateau. He was the sky. He could feel every mind. The hot, brutal, greedy minds of the Nithrax troops. The cold, precise, murderous minds of the Aegis snipers. He felt them as pinpricks of light in a new, expanded consciousness. An Aegis sniper, hidden on a ridge 2 kilometers away, centered his sights on the hole in the station wall. He saw a flicker of movement. The princess. He squeezed the trigger, the hypervelocity slug, traveling at 10,000 meters per second, left his rifle. It traveled for 1 centimeter. Then it stopped, frozen in midair. It hung, suspended. Then it turned, slowly, deliberately. It pointed back at the sniper. The sniper's eyes went wide. He had time for a single, stunned curse before his own bullet found his heart. Aiden was the architect of the battlefield. The magnetic debris field, the shrapnel blender, was now his weapon. He lifted a 2-ton piece of engine block from the field, gathering it in a telekinetic grip of pure lattice energy. He hurled it across the sky. It crashed into an Aegis observation post, silencing it forever. Karen's troops were trapped. The very ground was fighting them. Hallways in the station that his men had mapped suddenly became dead ends. Doors opened onto sheer, 100-foot drops. The station was a living, lethal labyrinth, and Aiden was the Minotaur. But in the center of that maze, in the broadcast room, the god was dying. Aiden was shaking violently. His body was a conduit for a star's worth of energy, and his human flesh was burning away. The ghosts were back. Not just his team, thousands of them. A screaming chorus of voices from the lattice's ancient, dark history. They were pulling at him, trying to tear his consciousness apart. He was losing himself, drowning in the noise. His eyes snapped open. They were not his. They were solid orbs of electric blue, pupils and irises gone. He looked at Arya, but he looked through her. Aiden! Her voice was a terrified whisper. She grabbed his shoulders. He was burning hot, his armor near molten. Aiden, come back. Stay with me. He focused on her face. A single, human point of reference in a hurricane of cosmic power. He saw the line of her jaw, the fear in her eyes, the way she held on, even though he was burning her gloves. His own voice, a shredded, agonized rasp, cut through the layered chorus of the dead. If we survive this, he gasped, his face contorted in a death's head grin. You owe me a dinner, he choked, a flicker of the man he was. Somewhere, without minds. It was the most insane, heartbreakingly human thing he could have said. Arya, trapped between terror and a love she could no longer deny, laughed. It was a raw, broken sound, half sob, half release. It is a date, Ward, she whispered, her tears sizzling on his superheated armor. Now come back to me. Her voice, her laugh, her presence, was the anchor. It was the lighthouse. The ghosts screamed, but he found her. The noise receded. He was no longer drowning. He was in control. He turned his full, terrible attention to the Nithrax army. Regent Karen watched his forces disintegrate. He was not a fool. This was not a weapon. This was a god. And you could not fight a god with plasma rifles. Aiden did not just destroy the remaining tanks. He drained them. He pulled the energy from their cores, drinking it, feeding the lattice. One by one, Karen's war machines died. Their lights went out. Their engines went silent. They became 200-ton paperweights, frozen on the ice. Retreat, Karen roared. All forces, pull back. Now. Withdraw. In orbit, Director Hale watched the Nithrax army break and run. He was not impressed. He was terrified. This was the nightmare scenario. The reason Aegis Black existed. A human lattice user, gone rogue. A walking apocalypse. He would not, could not, let this variable exist. He could not let the witness, the princess, survive to report what she had seen. He has beaten them, Hale said, his voice calm, his hand steady on his console. But he has exposed himself. He is channeling, which means he is vulnerable to a system-level attack. He looked at his tactical officer. He has hijacked the station, so we will take the station away from him. Activate the Aegis failsafe. Detonate the reactor core. Aiden felt it. A cold, surgical, invasive line of code. It bypassed his lattice shield. It was an Aegis backdoor, burrowing straight for the station's heart. A self-destruct sequence. A frantic, synthetic voice filled the broadcast room. Reactor overload initiated. Detonation in 5 minutes. Aiden was caught. He was holding the shield, bending space, running the labyrinth. And now, this worm was in his brain. He could not fight it and hold the shield at the same time. He let the shield drop. Outside, the pillars of light vanished. The bent space snapped back to normal. The debris in the air clattered to the ground. The station was just a station again. In the broadcast room, Aiden's body went rigid. He was in a silent war, a battle of wills against Hale's master code. Detonation in 1 minute. "Aiden!" Arya screamed, watching the countdown. "We have to go." "Cannot move," he grated. His teeth were clenched so hard his jaw ached. He was fighting the code, bit by bit. Detonation in 30 seconds. Arya grabbed his arm, trying to pull him, but he was locked. An immovable statue of pure, focused will. "I am not leaving you," she yelled, tears streaming down her face. Aiden threw his head back and roared. It was a sound of pure, mental, agonizing effort. He was not just fighting the code, he was tearing it apart. On the console, the timer flickered, stopped, vanished. Self-destruct canceled. He had done it, but to win, he had to sever his connection to the lattice. Not gently, not a power down. He had taken an axe to the main cable. The backlash of pure, cosmic energy, untethered and violent, snapped back. It hit his mind with the force of a supernova. The blue light in his eyes vanished. He was just a man. And the station, no longer supported by the lattice's impossible, gravity-defying architecture, began to die. The walls groaned. The ceiling above the broadcast room, which had been supporting 100 tons of ice, cracked. Aiden slumped forward, his eyes rolling back, unconscious. A shadow fell over them. A massive, 10-ton support girder, torn loose, was falling. Arya did not think. She lunged. She grabbed the front of Aiden's armor, ignoring the heat, and pulled him with a strength she did not know she possessed. She dragged him backward, stumbling, falling. The girder crashed down, obliterating the console and the floor where Aiden had been sitting, sending a shower of sparks and pulverized metal through the room. She scrambled, pulling his dead weight, getting him under the reinforced arch of the main doorway, just as the rest of the ceiling collapsed. The world dissolved into a choking, black cloud of dust and pulverized concrete. Seconds passed, or minutes. The station was groaning, settling, but the main collapse was over. In the choking darkness, lit only by the red glow of a single, flickering emergency light. Arya coughed, her lungs on fire. She was half buried in rubble, but she was alive. She looked at the man she was shielding with her own body. Aiden. He was limp, his face covered in dust, a trickle of blood leaking from his ear. She put her fingers to his neck, praying. A pulse. Faint, thready, but it was there. He was alive. She collapsed over him, her adrenaline gone, leaving only a vast, empty exhaustion. She held the unconscious man in her arms, surrounded by the ruins of Skyloom, and wept. Miles above them, in the cold, silent dark of orbit, Mira Solace hit send. She had been busy. She had recorded Hale's illegal broadcast. She had recorded the Nithrax assault codes. And she had the clean, pristine, original signal that Arya had sent. The proof. She did not send it to the Imperial news feeds. She sent it to the smugglers, the fringe world hackers, the truth-tellers in the dark. "There you go, ward dog," she muttered, watching the packet slice through the dark net. "You made the noise. I will make the sense." On the fringes of the Auric Reach, 1,000 screens lit up. The lie began to unravel. On Regent Karen's flagship, an aide watched the Aegis stiletto slip away. "Sir, Hale failed. The station is crippled, but not destroyed. And the underground feeds are on fire. They are calling the blood warrant a lie." Karen looked at the ruined station, now being approached by the real Imperial patrols, their weapon ports open, their captains demanding answers. Karen smiled. It was a cold, satisfied expression. Aegis is exposed. The Empress is in chaos. This is an opportunity. He did not care about the wreck. He did not care about Aiden Ward. He cared about the princess. They will rescue her, he mused. They will take her home. To the Citadel Orium. To the heart of the Empire. To tell her little story. He turned to his officers. Ready my diplomatic ship. We are going to the capital. The Empress is holding a full session to address this crisis. And I will be there to offer my sincere condolences and to collect my prize. The Citadel Orium was a spike of impossible, golden light. A city built to defy gravity and good taste. It hung in the high, thin atmosphere of the capital world, a monument to the Auric Reach's power. It was clean. It was orderly. And Aiden Ward hated it more than any ice-blasted rock on the fringe. I hate cities, he muttered, the synthesized voice of his translator mask, making the words sound flat and devoid of the venom he felt. Too many people, too many reflective surfaces. It is just a bigger, prettier version of Skyloom. It is the heart of the galaxy, Ward, Mira Solace whispered next to him, her own disguise a cascade of rich, shimmering silks. She looked like a wealthy merchant, which she was, just not a legal one. Try to look impressed, not constipated. They were moving with a small, shuffling delegation through the great concourse. Mira had, through means Aiden did not want to question, acquired the identities of a minor trading guild from a forgotten sector. They were here to petition the Empress for something. Aiden had not bothered to read the brief. He was focused on the Imperial Guard. They were everywhere, plumes of white and gold on their helmets, kinetic rifles held at a perfect, ceremonial rest. But their eyes were not ceremonial. They were hard. They were scanning every face. The outline of the plot was clear. The guard was split. He could see it. The older ones, the royalists, looked at the crowds with a tired vigilance. The new ones, the younger, ambitious officers, watched with a predatory hunger. They were Karen's men, or men who wished they were. Arya was walking just ahead of him, disguised as Mira's attendant. She was trembling. He could see it, a fine tremor in her hands. She was not just returning to her home. She was walking into the dragon's den, and she knew half the dragons were wearing her family's colors. Aiden was still weak. The backlash from the lattice at Skyloom had scoured his nerves. He felt like a wire, stripped bare, humming with a painful, residual energy. He was in no condition for this. But here they were. They entered the great chamber. It was a cavern of light and gold, a vast, tiered amphitheater that looked out over the clouds. On the first throne, high above everyone, sat Empress Celiora. She was a figure of absolute, unmoving authority. Her face was a mask of iron composure. But Aiden, with his raw, screaming nerves, could feel the truth. She was terrified. The rumors, the data dumps from Mira, the failed blood warrant. Her empire was cracking, and sitting in a place of honor, on a secondary platform, was Regent Karen. He was not in armor. He was dressed in the deep, formal robes of a grieving ally. His face was a picture of noble concern. Aiden wanted to put a kinetic slug through that face. "All rise for the word of the Empress," a herald announced. Celiora stood. Her voice, amplified by the chamber's acoustics, was clear and cold. "We are gathered in a time of crisis. Lies have poisoned our reach. Our own daughter, Princess Arya, was taken." "Abducted by a human terrorist," Karen interrupted. His voice was smooth, sympathetic. "A tragedy we all—" "I was not abducted." The voice was quiet, unamplified, but it cut through the chamber like a diamond. Arya stepped forward from the delegation. She pulled the hood from her face. The chamber died. 1,000 delegates, lords, and guards went utterly silent. A collective, galactic gasp. Empress Celiora's hands gripped the arms of her throne. Her iron composure did not just crack, it shattered. "Arya." "Mother," Arya said, her voice stronger now. "I was not abducted. I was betrayed. By our own court. By men loyal to him." She pointed, her arm straight and steady, at Regent Karen. Karen's look of concern did not waver, but his eyes went cold. He smiled. "My child, you are confused. The trauma. This human, Ward. He has twisted your mind." "She is not confused," Aiden said, stepping forward, his own hood dropping. He looked rough, scarred, and completely out of place in the Golden Hall. He was a piece of Halcyon's ice, dropped into a furnace. The guards raised their rifles. "Wait," Celiora commanded, her voice a strained rasp. "You want proof," Empress Aiden said. He looked at Mira, who was already at a side console, disguised as a scribe. "You want to know who your real allies are." He tapped his wristcom. Mira hit the key. The Great Chamber's primary holoscreen, the one that showed the Imperial seal, flickered. It was replaced by an image of Director Hale. His voice, calm and silky, filled the chamber. "Confirm the deal with Regent Karen. Aegis Black will secure the border worlds. Nithrax will receive exclusive mining rights to the Halcyon sector. Once the anchor, Aiden Ward, is neutralized." The screen split. Contracts, encrypted communications, the entire filthy deal. Aiden looked up at Karen, whose smile was finally, agonizingly, gone. "It seems the Nithrax Consortium and the neutral peacekeepers of Aegis Black are more than just friends." Aiden's voice was light, conversational, and carried to every corner of the room. "A holy alliance. How very noble." The chamber erupted. Shouts, accusations. Guards, unsure who to arrest, were pointing weapons at each other. The council was in chaos. Karen looked at Aiden, his face a mask of pure, reptilian hatred. And then, a new alarm. A different alarm. Not a security breach. A military threat. "Empress!" a tactical officer yelled from a lower pit. "We have an orbital signature. Massive energy buildup. It is a weapon. Firing solution locked on the Citadel." On the tactical screen, they all saw it. A vast, lattice-like structure in high orbit. It was gathering solar energy, focusing it into a single, terrifying point of light. "The Scythe," Mira whispered, her face pale. "Nithrax's hidden weapon. An energy reflector. A planet killer." Karen threw back his head and laughed. A roaring, triumphant sound that cut through the panic. "Yes," he boomed. "You fools. You see, the traitor brings his war to your home. He exposes your Empress's weakness." He turned to Celiora. "But I will save you. When you agree to my terms, when you give me what I am owed." "You will get nothing," Arya spat. "Oh, I will, Princess," Karen said. He slammed his hand on a hidden activator on his chair. "You are my insurance." A shimmer of blue light. A transmat portal opened beside him. He moved faster than Aiden could have believed, grabbing Arya, pulling her toward the light. "You are coming with me," he snarled. Aiden lunged. He was too slow. The Imperial Guard was too confused. He grabbed for her, his fingers brushing her arm. Before Karen pulled her through, the portal snapped shut. They were gone. Aiden stood, breathing heavily, in the center of the chaotic hall. He was shaking with rage. He looked at the empty space where the portal had been. He looked at the tactical screen, at the scythe charging in orbit. He knew where they were. He ran to the console Karen had used. He slammed his own hand on it. He closed his eyes. Just a thread. He did not ask the lattice for power. He asked for information. He followed the quantum echo of the transmat, a fading string in the dark. He found it. The scythe. The orbital factory. He turned to Mira, who was already running toward him. Keep them busy. Try not to get vaporized. Where are you going? To get her back. He sprinted from the chamber, past the confused guards, to a service transmat pad on a lower level. He did not wait for clearance. He input the coordinates he had ripped from the console and hit the activation key. The golden hall dissolved into blue light. The factory was a skeleton of steel and plasma conduits, hanging in the black. Through the transparent bulkheads, Aiden could see the planet below, a beautiful, marbled blue and white, and above, the scythe itself, a vast, parabolic mirror, its central lens glowing a ferocious, white-hot. It was almost at full charge. He found them in the main control room. Karen was strapping Arya into a containment field. "Welcome, Anchor," Karen sneered, not even turning. His armored hand was on the main firing console. "You are just in time to watch. I will not destroy the Citadel. Not yet. I will simply carve my initials into the Imperial Park. A warning. To show them what true power looks like." "Let her go, Karen." "Or what you will use your magic tricks," Karen laughed. "My armor is shielded. This room is shielded. Your little god cannot reach you here." Aiden attacked. He launched himself across the deck, his knife in his hand. Karen met him, a gauntleted fist catching him in the chest, sending him flying backward into a console. Pain exploded in his back. Karen was a brute, but a fast one. He activated a containment field. A wall of solid energy slammed down between them, separating Aiden and Arya from the main console. "And now," Karen said, "the trap." He hit another switch. The room Aiden and Arya were trapped in began to glow. A deep, red hum filled the air. "This is the resonance chamber," Arya said, her eyes wide with scientific horror. "It is where they tune the beam. It focuses the energy." The bulkheads were growing hot. The air was shimmering. It was an oven. "Aiden," she said, her voice tight, "we are going to be cooked alive." Aiden was already at the energy wall, his hands probing it, feeling the patterns. It was solid, unbreakable. He looked at the door, sealed. He slammed his fist against the wall. "No!" The heat was rising. Sweat was pouring down his face. His synthetic patch was beginning to bubble and peel. "Aiden." He turned. Arya was watching him. She was not terrified. She was calm, resigned. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice quiet, cutting through the rising hum. "Not now, Princess," he grated, searching the wall for a weak point. "Yes, now." She walked to him, placing her hand on his arm. "I need to tell you. I did not follow you from Halcyon just for my empire, or for my mother." He stopped. He looked at her. Her face was flushed from the heat, her hair sticking to her temples. She had never looked more beautiful. "When we were on Halcyon," she said, her voice soft, "I was a symbol. I was a title. But you never saw that. You saw a person. A very annoying, loud person. But a person. You are an annoying, loud person," he said, his voice rough. She smiled, a small, sad smile. "When you lost yourself in the tunnel, when I held you, I saw the man. Not the traitor, not the myth, the man. The one who was in so much pain, but who kept fighting." She took a breath. "And I love that man. Aiden Ward. I love you." The confession hung in the superheated air. It was more real, more solid than the steel walls around them. Aiden looked at her. He felt the old, cold walls in his own chest, the ones he had built on Halcyon, the ones made of ice and betrayal. Just melt. He almost smiled. Well, that is complicated. He reached up, his glove brushing a stray piece of hair from her face. I think I chose you the moment you insulted my cooking skills back in the cache. Arya laughed, a short, breathless sound. I said your ration bar stew tasted like static. It did, he admitted. And you were the only person in 5 years honest enough to tell me. I knew you were trouble then. The moment was perfect, and it was ending. The hum became a scream. The walls were glowing a dull red. The scythe is at peak charge. Karen's voice boomed over the intercom. Goodbye, lovers. Aiden looked at Arya. I am sorry, he said. For what? For this. He put his hand on the wall. He closed his eyes, and he opened the channel. Not a whisper, not a shout. He became the storm. He was not in the room. He was in the system. He was in the scythe, and he was not alone. The lattice was here, woven into the very fabric of the station. It was an ancient, dormant code. He did not just hack the station, he claimed it. Karen was at the console, his hand hovering over the firing key. Fire! The system did not respond. Access denied. What? Karen slammed his fist on the panel. Access denied. Anchor protocol engaged. A new voice filled the station. It was Aiden's. But it was not. It was the voice of the lattice, of the planet, of the anchor. It boomed through every speaker. Regent Karen, you are a squatter. This property is condemned. Ownership transferred. The resonance chamber's energy field died. The red glow faded. The main door slid open. Aiden was standing there, his eyes a solid, terrifying blue. Arya was behind him, her hand on his back. You, Karen whispered, his face white. You are a monster. He drew his own plasma pistol. I will kill you myself. You can try, Aiden said. They fought. But the station was now Aiden's. As Karen lunged, the gravity plating beneath his feet reversed. He was suddenly on the ceiling, disoriented. He fired his pistol, the shot going wild. Aiden did not move. He just watched. This is not a fair fight. Karen. Aiden's voice echoed. Karen roared in rage, pushing himself off the ceiling, back toward the floor. But the gravity shifted again, sideways. He slammed into a bulkhead, his armor groaning. You like to play God, Regent, Aiden said, walking toward him, his boots clinging to the deck while Karen flailed. How does it feel to meet a bigger one? Karen got his footing. He was a warrior. He charged. Aiden met him. It was not a fight of strength. It was a fight of balance. Aiden was the center of the storm. Karen was just falling. Aiden used Karen's own momentum against him, redirecting him, tripping him, using the shifting gravity as a weapon. Finally, Aiden disarmed him. Karen was on his back, the gravity solidifying. Aiden's boot was on his chest, his own knife at the Regent's throat. Karen spat, blood and fury in his eyes. Do it! Anchor! Be the monster! Finish it! Aiden looked down at the man who had ordered his team's death, the man who had hunted him, the man who had nearly boiled Arya alive. The old Aiden, the ghost of Halcyon, screamed at him to twist the blade. He looked back. Arya was watching, her face pale, trusting. He pulled the knife away. No, Aiden said, his voice his own again, the blue in his eyes fading. You do not get to be a martyr. You get to be a prisoner. You get to stand in that golden hall and explain to the galaxy what you did. He slammed the hilt of the knife against Karen's temple. The Regent's eyes rolled back, and he went limp. When they transmatted back into the great chamber, the silence was absolute. The tactical screen was dark. The scythe was inert. Aiden, bruised and bleeding, half-dragged the unconscious, armored form of Regent Karen into the center of the room. Arya walked beside him. They stood before the first throne. The entire council, the guards, the delegates, stared at them. Empress Celeora rose. Her face was not iron. It was odd. You are Aiden Ward, she said. It was not a question. The anchor. As Aiden stood on the ancient, golden stone of the citadel's floor, the lattice, now fully awake and bound to him, responded. It was not a violent light. It was a gentle shimmer in the air, a warmth. The ancient, pre-imperial stones of the chamber itself recognized him. The power was undeniable, calm, peaceful, and absolutely present. Celeora understood. She was not just looking at a human. She was not looking at a traitor or a hero. She was looking at a living embodiment of a power older than her dynasty, a law that predated the Auric Reach, the Empress of 1,000 worlds, the ruler of the galaxy, descended the steps of her throne. She walked across the floor until she stood before the outcast from Earth. And then, Empress Celeora knelt. It was not surrender. It was not fear. It was acknowledgement. The ancient pact, she whispered, her head bowed. It is renewed. The lattice has its guardian. One by one, the royal guard, the council members, the lords, and the delegates. They followed her lead. In a great, rustling wave of silk and armor, the entire empire knelt. They were not kneeling to Aiden Ward. They were kneeling to the past. They were kneeling to the truth. They were honoring the ancient law that had just awakened. The silence that followed the kneeling of an empire was heavier than any sound. In the great chamber, 1,000 souls held their breath, their heads bowed, not to the man, but to the history he represented. Aiden Ward stood, the blood of the fight still drying on his face, the ghost of the lattice's power, a faint, electric hum in his bones. He felt naked. He felt exhausted. He looked at Arya, who stood beside him, her hand finding his. She was his anchor. She was the only reason he was still sane. Empress Celeora rose. The rustle of her robes was the only sound. She did not return to her throne. She stood before Aiden, her expression stripped of all its imperial iron. She looked, for the first time, like a mother, and a leader who had seen a ghost. The ancient pact is acknowledged, she said, her voice clear and carrying. It was not a concession. It was a statement of fact. The balance, broken for millennia, is restored. She turned to the guards. Secure Regent Karen. He will stand trial before the assembled council. Not for treason, though that is his crime, but for sacrilege, for attempting to weaponize a force that binds us all. As Karen was dragged away, his unconsciousness a mercy he did not deserve. The chamber began to breathe again. Aides rushed in, their faces pale, holding data slates. The shockwave of Mira's data dump, combined with the events in the chamber, was shattering the galactic political landscape. Empress, one aide stammered. The Nithrax Consortium. It is in freefall. Mira Solis's broadcast was definitive. Proof of their alliance with Aegis, their orbital weapon, their manipulation of the markets. Their assets are being seized across 24 sectors. The network is dissolving. Another aide stepped forward. And Earth. The unified government has recalled its entire diplomatic corps. They have disavowed Aegis Black, branding it a rogue entity. An internal investigation has been launched. Director Hale. His name is on every warrant, but he has vanished. He is presumed to have fled to the uncharted territories. Aiden listened to this. The end of his 5-year quest for revenge was not a shout of triumph. It was a dry, bureaucratic report. Hale was gone. His team was still dead. But the machine they had served, the lie they had all died for, was broken. It was a cold, unsatisfying victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. The next 2 days were a blur of diplomacy. Aiden sat in a high-backed, uncomfortable chair in a private council room. Celiora sat opposite him, not as a monarch, but as a negotiator. Arya was at his side, acting as his translator, his advisor, and his buffer against the crushing weight of imperial protocol. "The Council of Worlds has ratified the Halcyon Convention," Celiora stated, her hands folded. "It reestablishes the ancient law. Any planet hosting a primary lattice node, such as Halcyon, is declared a protected sovereignty. Its designated anchor is its legal guardian. The Empire, therefore, formally relinquishes all claims." She leaned forward. "This places us in a new and fascinating reality. Aiden Ward, Halcyon is yours, and its power is yours to command. The Auric Reach wishes to propose a formal alliance, an equal partnership." Aiden looked at the treaty, a complex, shimmering document of light and legal code. He did not read it. He looked at Arya, then back at the Empress. "I do not want an alliance," he said, his voice rough. "And I am not a king. I am a guardian. The word you used." He pushed the treaty back. "Halcyon belongs to the people who live there. The settlers. The ones who have been fighting your storms and your monsters for decades." He stood, his old injuries aching in the Citadel's perfect climate. "Here are my terms. You will remove all military presence. You will share all scientific data you have, and you will declare Halcyon a data-sovereign world. No corporation, no government, not even the Empire, can access its resources or its lattice without the express permission of its people. The planet is not a weapon. It is not a mine. It is a home." Arya spoke, her voice firm. "And we will establish a joint scientific commission. Its first priority will be civilian, not military. We will use the lattice to heal the planet, not rule the galaxy. We will calm the ion storms and purify the water supplies." Celiora stared at him. She had expected a power grab, a human, given the power of a god, asking for territory, for ships, for a crown. Instead, he was asking for autonomy, for peace. The Empress smiled, a true, warm smile that transformed her face. This is why the lattice chose a human. Not for your strength, but for your stubborn, infuriating, principled humanity. The terms are accepted. Emissary." "I am not an emissary," Aiden grumbled. "You are now," Celiora said. And that was that. Mira Solis was in her element. They found her in a massive cargo bay, overseeing the loading of a dozen salvaged Nithrax freighters. She was shouting orders, her face bright with the joy of pure, unadulterated chaos. "Ward Dog! Princess!" she yelled, waving a data slate. "The galaxy is a beautiful mess. Nithrax is dead, which means thousands of fringe worlds just lost their only supply line. They are starving. Their medical systems are failing. It is a disaster. I love it." "You love a humanitarian crisis, Mira," Arya asked, appalled. "I love an opportunity," Mira corrected, her grin feral. "Nithrax held its monopoly with guns. I am going to replace it with efficiency. I am calling it the Goodwill Galaxy, a rapid response aid network for all the forgotten dirtballs on the fringe. Legal. This time, mostly legal." She gestured to the freighters. "I have ships. I have cargo. I just need capital." Arya did not hesitate. "You have it. I am diverting my entire personal treasury to this. We will fund it. But it needs more than supplies. It needs science." Arya turned to Aiden, her eyes bright with a new purpose. The princess was gone, replaced by an architect. "I am establishing the Halcyon Fund, It is not just for aid. It is for education. We will build applied science centers, offer scholarships to children from the fringe. We will teach them how to use the technology that has oppressed them. Mira whistled. A hacker, a princess scientist, and a walking god. We are either going to save the galaxy or be the most expensive criminals in history. Aiden looked at these two women, his new, strange, impossible family. He felt the last of the ice in his chest crack. Just try to stay out of my jurisdiction, Mira, he said. No promises, war dog, she laughed, and turned back to her ships. They returned to Halcyon. The planet felt different. The air was cleaner, the perpetual, bruised purple sky a shade lighter. Or perhaps, Aiden thought, he was the one who had changed. He stood on a desolate ridge, far from the settlements. The wind was the only sound, a low, mournful howl. Before him were 5 simple cairns, mounds of black, volcanic rock he had piled 5 years ago. Jason, Maya, his team. He stood there for a long time. The ghosts were gone. The rage that had fueled him, the acid-sharp need for revenge, had burned itself out. All that was left was a deep, quiet ache. Arya came and stood beside him. She did not speak. She did not offer comfort or platitudes. She just stood with him, a silent, warm presence against the planet's cold. He finally spoke, his voice quiet, for the wind and the stones to hear. Hale is gone, he said. The organization is broken. The lie is dead. It is not. It is not the justice I wanted. I did not get to kill the men who gave the order. But it is an ending. The truth is out. He touched the rough stone of the lead cairn. Rest now. It is over. He felt a weight lift from his shoulders. A weight he had carried for so long, he had mistaken it for his own spine. He turned away from the graves, his past finally, truly, behind him. Arya took his hand. The dinner, he decided, was a catastrophic failure. He was in his old hermitage. Arya had insisted. She, in her role as head of the new scientific commission, had access to the finest foods in the sector. But he had promised her a dinner, one without mines. And he was going to cook it. He was making a stew, a concoction of local root vegetables, a nutrient paste he had from his old stores, and something a local hunter had assured him was edible. It was not. It smelled like sulfur and regret. Arya sat at his small, metal table, watching him. Her expression one of polite, scientific curiosity. He grumbled, dumping the gray-brown sludge into 2 bowls. It is probably terrible, he warned. I have faced down Regent Karen and an orbital death ray, she said, picking up her spoon. I am sure I can survive your stew. She took a bite. Her eyes widened. She chewed, slowly, her expression unreadable. She swallowed, with difficulty. Well, he demanded, already defensive. She looked at him, a slow, beautiful smile spreading across her face. Aiden Ward. You cook exactly like you fight. What is that supposed to mean? A slow-motion explosion, she said. And then she laughed, a real, unrestrained laugh that filled the small cabin. He could not help it. He grinned. It tastes better than static. Only just, she admitted, taking another, braver bite. But she looked around the small, warm metal box, at the wind howling outside, at the man sitting opposite her. It is the best meal I have ever had. He reached across the table, his hand covering hers. No mines, he said, his voice soft. No mines, she agreed. Just dinner. The planet was healing, under Arya's guidance, and with Aiden's cautious, gentle connection to the lattice. The worst of the ion storms were being redirected, their energy grounded and siphoned into the planet's failing power grid. The singing glass forest was studied. its dangerous frequencies now being used to help refine water. The settlers, who had once lived in terror of their world, were beginning to thrive. They had a new name for him. When he walked through the settlement, they would nod, their expressions a mix of awe and gratitude. They called him the Ward of the Lattice, the Guardian. He was overseeing the construction of a new hydropurifier when the transmission came. It was Empress Celiora. Her image flickered on his compad, her smile warm. "Emissary," she said, ignoring his sigh. "Halcyon is stable. You and Princess Arya have performed a miracle. But the galaxy is not stable." Her expression grew serious. "The fall of Nithrax and Aegis has left a power vacuum. Chaos. The fringe worlds are in turmoil. The old laws are breaking. The Reach needs more than a military. It needs a symbol, an independent voice, someone who stands outside the hierarchy of the Empire, but who holds its respect, someone who embodies the ancient pact." Aiden knew what was coming. "I am formally offering you the position of freelance emissary of the Auric Reach," she said. "Your authority comes not from my throne, but from the lattice itself. Go where you are needed, settle disputes, protect the forgotten, be the guardian, not just of Halcyon, but of the balance." He looked up from the compad. Arya was there, watching him, her own work forgotten. She was smiling. She already knew his answer. He looked at the clear, purple sky, at the new, clean water flowing into the cisterns, at his home. "I accept," Aiden said, his voice firm. "On one condition," Celiora smiled, a knowing, maternal smile. "Halcyon will always be your anchor, Ward of the Lattice. It will always be your home. Go, emissary, and return. We will be waiting." The transmission ended. Aiden looked at Arya, at the life they were building. He then looked up, at the endless, glittering field of stars. They were not a prison, not anymore. They were a path. The ship was a whisper in the cold halcyon dawn. It was not an Imperial dreadnought or an Aegis stiletto. It was a Venture-class courier, sleek and dark, its engines running on silent, gravitational currents. It rested on a newly constructed landing pad at the edge of the main settlement. Aiden Ward, emissary of the Lattice, zipped up a simple, durable travel bag. He was dressed in dark, civilian clothes, not armor. The kinetic rifle was gone, left in his hermitage. The wounds on his back had healed, leaving a network of pale, silvery scars that hummed with a faint, residual energy. Arya entered the small, prefabricated living space they now shared. She handed him a thermal flask. "Nutrient broth," she said. "Not stew." "A wise decision," he said, taking it. He looked at her, at the way the morning light caught the intelligence in her eyes. The terror she had worn on this planet was gone, replaced by a deep, abiding calm. She was the head of the Halcyon Commission, and she wore the authority with an ease she never had as a princess. "Are you ready?" she asked. "I have been running or hiding for 5 years," he said. "Walking toward trouble, by choice, is a new feeling. I am not sure ready is the word." "You will be fine," she said, adjusting the collar of his jacket. "You have a terrible habit of surviving." "Only because I had a good co-pilot," he replied. They walked together, not to the ship, but to the ridge overlooking the valley. The fire bridge where he had carried her, the one that crossed the magma conduit, was gone. In its place, the lattice had stabilized the geology. The magma, now contained, fed a geothermal plant. The ridge itself was now a place of pilgrimage. The crystals in the rock had begun to glow with a soft, internal light, absorbing the ambient energy of the lattice. They called it the Luminous Bridge. A small group of settlers was there. They did not cheer or crowd him. They just nodded, their faces filled with a quiet, profound respect. The ward of the lattice was leaving. He and Arya stood at the edge of the bridge, the ship waiting on the pad below. "Your first mission," she said quietly. "A mining dispute in the Cinder Cone cluster. It sounds mundane." "I am hoping for mundane," Aiden said. "Mundane is good. Mundane means no one is getting vaporized." "Still," she hesitated. "Aiden, be careful. The galaxy knows what you are, but they do not know who you are. They will test you." "Let them try," he said. A soft chime came from his wristcom. He tapped it. A secure, holographic image of Empress Celiora appeared. She looked tired, but the iron was back in her spine. "Emissary," she said, her voice formal but warm. "I wish you safe passage on your first journey. The reach is chaotic. Your presence will bring stability." "I will do what I can, Empress," Aiden said. "I know you will," she said. She paused, and her gaze shifted, becoming something deeper, more complex. "Aiden Ward, before you step onto that ship, there is a final truth you must carry. A truth I should have revealed in the Citadel. But the moment was too public. It is the last secret of the First Throne." Aiden and Arya exchanged a glance. "Arya," Celiora said, her gaze softening as she looked at her daughter. "Your escape pod. The one that crashed on Halcyon." "What about it?" Arya asked. "It was not an accident," Celiora said. "Its flight path was not random. It did not just happen to land within kilometers of the one man in the galaxy who could protect you." Aiden went still. "What do you mean?" "The lattice," Celiora said, "is far more than a network. It is a nascent consciousness. It has an instinct. For millennia, it has been dormant, but aware, and it has been searching. It has been tagging, in a way, certain bloodlines among the newer species. Bloodlines that carry a specific genetic resonance, a potential to interface. When your ship was attacked, Princess, your pod broadcast a distress signal. The lattice on Halcyon answered. It reached out, created a gravity well anomaly, and pulled your pod to the one person on the planet it recognized as compatible. It brought you to him. Aiden. It knew you were there." Aiden felt a cold shock. The single, cosmic coincidence that had begun this entire nightmare was not a coincidence at all. It was an introduction. "But why?" Arya whispered. "Why him? Why humans?" Celiora took a deep breath. This was it. The great, final truth. "Because the lattice was not built by my ancestors. The Auric Empire, the great species of the Reach. We are infants. We did not create the network. We found it. We built our empire on the bones of a far older, far greater civilization, a coalition of species that predate our records. We called them, in our arrogance, the First Forge." Aiden looked at his own hands. "The First Forge." "They worked together," Celiora continued, her voice filled with a reverence that chilled him. "One species designed the energy conduits. Another mapped the hyperdimensional pathways. But one species provided the anchor, the biological interface, the genetic key that could bind the physical world to the energy of the web. They were the architects of the bridge, a prehistoric, spacefaring community, a community that originated on a small, blue world you call Earth." Arya's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, gods." "You are a descendant, Aiden," Celiora said, her gaze locking with his. "A direct genetic descendant of the First Forge. Your intuition, your curse, is your inheritance. It is why your touch on Halcyon was not an invasion. It was a homecoming. The lattice was not answering a stranger. It was welcoming its master." Aiden's mind flashed back, his team, the fire, the betrayal, the pain. It all clicked into place, but the image it formed was new and terrible. Aegis, he breathed, the name tasting like ash. Celiora nodded, her face grim. Aegis Black. They are more than spies, more than assassins. Their deepest, most secret project was archaeology. They found the fragments of the first forged texts. They knew. They knew what the human bloodline was capable of. They were not just a Black Ops agency. They were trying to build a god. They were trying to control the Anchor bloodline. My team, he said, his voice flat, dead. My intuition that led them into a trap. It was not a trap for you, Aiden. It was a test, Celiora said, her voice heavy with the weight of the revelation. They put you, their prize specimen, in an impossible situation. They wanted to see if the stress would awaken your power. Your intuition was your raw, untrained connection. They tried to amplify it, to force it. And when it failed, when you were just a man, not a god, the experiment was a failure. You and your team were not a mole. You were a failed project. You were loose ends, witnesses to a sacrilege they could not allow to be known. The revenge he had craved, the ghosts he had carried, it all evaporated. He had not failed his team. He had been targeted with them. The guilt that had defined his life vanished, replaced by a cold, clear, profound calm. The wound was not healed. It was gone. Arya looked at her mother. The great chamber. When you knelt. You knew this. I knew part of it, Celiora admitted. I knew the legends of the First Forge. I did not realize Aegis was so close to the truth. But when I saw him, when I felt the lattice welcome him, I understood. We did not kneel to a man. Aiden. We did not surrender to a weapon. We knelt to the ancient pact. We were acknowledging the truth, that humans are not the newcomers, not the violent, ambitious children we always believed them to be. You are the firstborn, the co-authors of the law that binds us. We were not submitting. We were apologizing, and we were welcoming our partners home. The hologram flickered. Celiora looked tired, but at peace. That is the truth. Emissary. Carry it with you. It is a greater shield than any armor. The image vanished. Aiden and Arya stood in the cold morning light, the silence of the revelation settling around them. He was not a monster. He was not a traitor. He was not even an accident. He was an inheritance. So, he said, his voice rough, all that running. I was just running from who I was. You were finding your way back, Arya corrected, her voice soft. She stepped in front of him, taking both of his hands. My mother offered you an alliance, a political agreement. She reached into her pocket. She was not wearing rings or jewels. She pulled out a small, smooth, dark stone. It was a piece of the obsidian mountain from where they had first met, but it had a fine, internal web of light, a dormant lattice node. This is something else, she said. In the old texts, before the Empire, there was a pre-seal, a vow. It was not a political marriage or a promise of fealty. It was an anchor's vow. She placed the stone in his hand. It was warm. It is a promise, she said, her eyes locked on his. To bind ourselves, not to an empire, but to the lattice, to every life it touches. It is a vow to protect, to heal, to be the guardians my mother spoke of, not as rulers, but as partners. She covered his hand with her own. Your mission is not just yours, Aiden. It is ours. This is my vow. My love and my mission are the same. He looked at the stone, at her hand. He closed his fingers over it, over her. the faint hum in his bones aligned with the warmth in his palm. He was not a ghost. He was not a weapon. He was an anchor. And she was his. "My love," he said, his voice raw. "My mission. My anchor." He leaned down and kissed her. A kiss, not of fire, but of promise, on the cold, bright ridge of their new world. A sharp, cheerful beep came from his comm. A different channel, private. He opened it. It was an audio-only message, crackling with Mira Solis's unmistakable energy. "Just heard the big news. Emissary," Mira's voice chirped. "Very official, very fancy. But my spies are everywhere. I also heard about that little vow on the luminous bridge." A pause, laced with manufactured gravity. "I am just going to say this once. War Dog. If you two kids actually get married, I am demanding exclusive broadcast rights. The Goodwill Galaxy Fund needs the revenue. It will be the biggest pay-per-view event of the century." Aiden looked at Arya, an incredulous smile playing on his lips. Arya took the comm from his hand, her own smile bright and mischievous. "We will be charging admission at the door, Mira," Arya replied, her voice clear and carrying. "All proceeds will go directly to the Halcyon Refugee and Education Fund. We expect you to buy the first ticket." A loud, delighted cackle echoed across the ridge. "That is my girl. Solace out." The line cut. Aiden shook his head, the last of the shadows lifting. He was home. He and Arya walked, side by side, down to the landing pad. They did not look back. They walked up the ramp of the dark courier ship. The hatch sealed behind them, a soft, final hiss. Inside, the cockpit was dark, the main viewport showing the vast, purple sky of Halcyon and the limitless field of stars beyond. The Auric Reach. Aiden sat in the pilot's chair. Arya took the co-pilot's seat, her hands moving over the navigation console, as if she had been born to it. He looked at her, then at the universe waiting for them. "A relic," he said, his voice quiet. "A creator. A partner. And a human," Arya added, her hand resting on the throttle. Aiden smiled. He engaged the engines. The ship rose, a silent, dark arrow, leaving the planet of ice and fire behind. He looked out at the glittering, endless expanse of the Reach. "Humans do not just survive," Aiden Ward said, his voice filled with a quiet, certain power. "Humans redefine the rules of the game." As the ship jumped to light speed, far below them, the great, silent web of the lattice pulsed once, a bright, stellar flare of promise that shone, unseen, across the entire galaxy.